Hello, hi
Hello,
Chinedu.
Mrs. Maloney. How are you?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So while we are going live right now, this will also be posted on our IGTV afterwards. So my name is Alexandria Maloney. I'm the co-founder of The World is Watching, the global coalition supporting the international Black Lives Matter movement. I'm joined here today by one of our resident policy experts and organizing experts, Chinedu Nwokeafor. So Chinedu, to start, could you share a little bit about you, a little bit of background about yourself and why you are particularly qualified to speak on this
So,
topic?
wow. um, a little bit of my background is I have a background in community organizing as well as a background in community activism, two different things. As well as I have been recently, just more recently, I've been down in South Carolina for the last month campaigning for Jamie Harrison, who wanted to unseat the incumbent Lindsey Graham for the U.S. Senate seat. It was unfortunately not a one race, but I have some interesting insight, especially as it pertains to the South and what is a determinant in this very, very key four states currently that we're looking at.
So let's get right into it. What's the dish? You can start with South Carolina or your perspectives kind of on the election as a whole right now, where it stands, and places that we should have our
So
eyes
I
on
will say
right now.
this. First of all, there has been this interesting ideology that every vote does not matter. And that may have been true before, but in this 2020 election, that entire notion is dead on arrival. Every vote matters so much, and that's why this is a nail biter right now. Because as we are watching, it is clear as day President Trump outdid Joe Biden for election day. However, as it pertains to mail-in ballots, they're saying that 67% of all mail-in ballots so far has been for Joseph R. Biden. So it really shows that every vote counts. And in my opinion, it shows that America actually should be moving towards a system where we're doing mail-in ballots, because it seems that that system is not rigged. And if you think about it, if and possibly when Joe Biden wins, because the way the statistics are looking, Joe Biden will probably clinch this White House. When he does win, it will show that even through all the adversity, with Donald Trump closing down the United States Postal Service and getting rid of the sorting machines and all the underfunding for the United States Postal Service, it goes to show that there is a huge comfort level and a huge trust in Americans mailing in their vote. I can say this: if a young woman can vote from the International Space Station that is orbiting above our heads, then surely people can vote by mail, unless somebody is interested in trying to suppress that vote, which is what we've seen, by saying that this is fraud, this is rigged. These are things that we see in developing nations, in Asia and Africa, usually where the United States will actually step in. The question is, who gets to step in when the United States isn't doing well? That's a question for us to figure out another time. But I think that this is a very interesting time for democracy.
Hmm. How has it felt? I'm curious to know, because I've been here helping and volunteering with the Biden campaign and things like that here in Central Florida, where we know has a strong Trump following, if you will. But I'd argue that there was equally a lot of pushback and a lot of resistance from Biden supporters, even more than I anticipated. Driving around Orlando or Tampa Bay and seeing so many Biden signs, even to my surprise, as someone who's very familiar with Florida and how it can be more conservative leaning at times. So, Chinedu, what has been the climate on the ground in South Carolina in your
So
experience of being there?
being in South Carolina was very interesting, and I'm going to kind of switch the narrative. And for everybody watching, I need you to pay very close attention to what I'm about to say because this is very, very imperative information. After being down there for a month campaigning, I wasn't just campaigning. I told everybody that we were all participating in ethnographic research, whether we knew it or not. Being in the space of South Carolina, I get I get Trump supporters now. I get the disconnects. I try to ask myself, if I'm still in the United States of America, why do these people down here seem so off compared to maybe people up here in the North? And you know what I realized? Technology plays a very, very pivotal role in how people think in this country. And it didn't dawn on me till I realized when we were canvassing, we barely had service to use our canvassing machine, minivan. And I'm like, we were staying at hotels, and even their Wi-Fi service, I did a couple of speed tests, their Wi-Fi services were inadequate. So I asked myself, I said, if there is not good broadband coming in to these rural areas, are they getting information? Are they getting access to information to verify certain news that they hear? But then you ask yourself, when you can't get verifiable information or you don't get a fast internet connection, what is always fast and always super easy? Facebook. Because Facebook has many versions that are light, that don't take up that much data, that don't need that much data. And it dawned on me, that is why a lot of people are misinformed as it pertains to those Trumpers who you would think would be more democratic, but a lack of technology has really played a dangerous role. And if you remember, back in the early 1900s, the electrification of the United States is what led to the growth of the South and the West. When they built the Hoover Dam, for example, which brought electricity from the Midwest to the full West so that a business could bloom. And when I was in the South, and I'm seeing how rural it is, I'm like, where is the broadband electrification plan? Because the South is in need. It's in dire need. Going to some of these homes, speaking to these people, and speaking to them with no judgment. Even though I was campaigning for Jamie Harrison, I made sure, because I thought it was very pertinent to, if I'm going to be a Democratic politician, I have to hear what the Republic, because the Democrats are already on our side. It's the swing Republicans that are in the middle. Explain to me why you like Lindsey Graham. And what I realize is a lot of them like him because he's what they know. And you know, the old saying is the devil you know is better than the angel you don't know. And that's what played in the case of Jamie Harrison. Even though he outraised Lindsey Graham and almost broke all state records, it wasn't enough because people are used to the same old thing. That's how Mitch McConnell won his seat. It doesn't matter that these people for generations, their conditions haven't changed. What they know is what they know. And that is a dangerous problem with the South. Without growth, the South remains completely red.
Sinead, do you think that Joe Biden will be able to serve if and when he is elected as U.S. president for these kind of rural, or I'm not even going to just say rural because it's not just rural white people who are voting for Trump. So for those who feel kind of feel a particular way towards our system, that they feel like they've been wronged, and I think that that may be some of why the leaning is occurring. Like, will Joe Biden be an adequate president for those individuals?
So here's the truth, and I, 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 as
As you know it.
I love Joseph Biden. I don't think, stay with me, that Joe Biden will be the person to address their problem. However, his team will be. And I think people need to really understand it's just like football. The quarterback is the quarterback, and he's very important to the team, but it's not just about him. The quarterback's presence alone can't win the game, but his presence can boost the morale of other teammates. And I think Joe Biden has a very strong starting five, if you will. Even judging by the people who went against him during the presidential election, in the very beginning, when we're trying to look for the Democratic frontrunner. I mean, when you look at
Mm-hmm.
Pete Buttigieg, when you look at even Amy Klobuchar, when you look at Cory Booker, these are some strong names. Elizabeth Warren. These are some strong names that will be able to put the policy in that will help the Biden presidency. Because what people forget, the name of the person you elect is just that, the name. But the presidency itself is based on who they have on that team. Charismatically speaking, a lot of people don't like Joe Biden. I was more of a Bernie surrogate. I liked Bernie Sanders. But what I'm realizing is that in the bigger scheme of things, for as long as Joe Biden has a strong team, which he will have, he will be able to address so many different issues because Joe Biden has been able to do the unthinkable. Look at Arizona right now. Look at the wife, the widow of late John McCain, Cindy McCain. She has been able to, when you look at Maricopa County in Arizona is 67% of the votes come from there. So when you look at that part of Arizona, and Arizona is very red. But when you look at somebody like John McCain, who lives in Arizona, who lived in Arizona, his house is in Arizona, his daughter grew up in Scottsdale. When you look at that situation and somebody as great and strong and vivacious as Cindy McCain standing up to say, I am going to be a surrogate for Biden, I think people are not thinking big enough. This will move more white women, I'm going to be very direct, white suburban women, towards the Democratic side. Now, the issue is not for this election, it's actually for the next one, the one after this. When Joe Biden does win, he needs to be able to not scare that population. He needs to be, because now that Cindy McCain has supported him, you need to keep her support because we need more Republicans of such a strong standing to flip in that manner because now it's less about it's country over party. So I think Joe Biden is really set up to make a very big change. We see how he did Michigan, how he flipped Michigan. It is a very, very close race, but also America is letting it be known that they want something different. And just like the Civil War, it's those who want something different versus those who want the same.
I've been trying to push away Civil War images, Civil War II images in my mind for the past 2 days. But thank you for those, for your insights there. What can a Joe Biden win mean or look like for the Black community in the
So
U.S.?
here's the thing. A Joe Biden win could be no win. Joe or Donald will not be a direct win because it for either the Black community on either party, because people have to understand that nothing gets fixed in a day. It will take successive
Right.
governments for this to work. But if and when Joe Biden wins, then the Black groups on both sides, the ones who are more conservatively Trump, the ones who are more moderate in the Democratic, and even the ones who are a little bit more liberal, they can come together and start making actual policy demands. No more generalisms. No more saying Black people need help. We're going to need direct policies. One, Senator Jim Clyburn from South Carolina has a $100 billion bill that's for broadband through America. That alone solves major issues for the Black community, because if our young kids can properly be educated and can do their homework and don't need to, and not just Black kids, we're talking about our Hispanic children as well, because in theory, a win for Black is a win for Hispanic America as well. I'm not sure if everybody knows that. We might need to go talk to our Hispanic colleagues down in Florida, but that's a whole nother story. That's one. Two, the bigger win for Black people is that Joe Biden will have a completely diverse cabinet. There is importance to that because you got to think about it. When Omarosa Manigault Newman sat in the White House in her position, she then became the sole person other than Ben Carson that Black people get to go to say, we have an issue. But with Joe Biden having a diverse group, there will be larger swaths of numbers of Black people, Hispanic people that we can bring our concerns to directly. Because you can't put everything on one person.
Or who already have a sense of the needs of these different
There you
communities to
go.
begin with, going
There
into
you
the
go.
job.
And more importantly, what Joe Biden is going to do indirectly, what people fail to realize, and this goes for everybody who said Obama didn't do shit for the 8 years, excuse my language, but that's what people are saying. He didn't do stuff for the 8 years that he was in office.
Mm-hmm.
Representation matters. It's not just about what Obama can do legally in his position. It's about who he can inspire. Are we seeing now, after the Obama era, how many Black women and men are taking up positions of office? It's increasing exponentially. And that is a part of it too. Some of it is just for the face of, yes, we can, which is what Obama stood for. So I think part of Biden's win is to give hope and life back to a dying American people, that there is time for recitation and restoration for our democracy. So a Biden win is great on all fronts. We have climate issues that Black students at HBCUs are ready to solve. That's what a Biden win can help. We have student loans that need to be forgiven so that we can stimulate the economy. Rather than just stimulating the military, we can stimulate the economy by forgiving loans for lower income graduates who are at HBCUs, who, rather than start a business and create opportunities, are working 2 to 3 jobs to be able to sustain their family and just to be able to pay the government back. We need that money to create new jobs. And statistics have shown that when given an opportunity, minorities, whether it be African Americans or Hispanics, they create jobs at exponential levels when they're able to be entrepreneurs. But you can't be an entrepreneur when you already have a debt to the government that is beyond the debt to the government that you have by being a Black man or woman in this country. So a Biden win, like I said, is literally the resurrection of America. He is not just fighting for the soul of America. He is fighting for the spirit that many of our ancestors died for. And although people don't see it directly, you have to remember that the bigger picture is the portrait. And we have to stop looking at one piece of the puzzle and look at the entire thing.
So, Chinedu 2024. Okay. Wow, just profound statements. And there was a lot of hearts and comments and praise emojis in the chat for that. I guess I'm gonna again, for those who are watching, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. My final question to you, Chinedu, what are your closing thoughts and your closing remarks for us moving forward?
Okay. So, whether you're, and this is when you say us, I take your us as African American people. Here's the truth.
And as America, period. All of us.
But I vote my interest. I think one thing we could do is take a lesson from Republicans. As Democrats, we have to be careful in this country of trying to save face. Identity politics in 2020, where we're in a global pandemic, is dead. What I notice that the Republicans do, and they do it very well, and this is why a lot of people, including the 20% of Black men who voted for Trump, shout out to the 95% of Black women who voted for Biden. There goes the Black women again, being the bedrock. Republicans have a very interesting thing that they don't mind doing unethical things. A lot of people believe unethical means illegal. Unethical is not illegal. It's just not in the status quo. I think Democrats might fare a little bit better if they kind of take note of that, because a real reason why a lot of people like Republicans is because they say that action, whether you like the action that they're doing, that they're getting it done. And people say that, you know, Democrats, we stonewall or we just sit there and the wheel is turning. And I think for America's democracy to stay on this course, because the moment these results are announced and Joe Biden wins, presumably, we need to be starting to prepare for the next election. Republicans have a very long-term game. And it doesn't matter who's in the White House. It works very well for them. Mitch McConnell, evil genius. He will die before he loses that seat. And we as Democrats, if we want to push our agenda that is better for the American economy, because here's the truth. Wall Street has predicted that no matter who wins, the economy is not going to falter. It's not going to go either way. Statistics have shown that there's no difference either way it goes. But if we want more democratic policies, because that's what matters, in place, Democrats have to roll their sleeves up and start really doing the work. Not symbolic work, but actual work, where things are getting passed, things are getting moved forward, and issues are really being addressed. We can't keep living in a world of symbolism. And as a Democrat, that's my issue. Everything is so symbolic, and that's how you get so lost in symbolism that you're realizing that you're just as poor with a Democratic president that you were with a Republican. So,
And I think I'd like to challenge and push back on something you said in terms of Republicans being unethical. I personally, I don't know if unethical is a word that I would necessarily use, but I do think there may be a different strategy that is more aligned with the party's individual interests, if you will, strategy aligned with interest. And I do think that, you know, strategy is really important for getting some of these bigger issues through, getting them across the line for both parties. And I think how each of these parties do it is a little different. You know, so while I don't know if I would consider them unethical, they may be unpopular, or maybe considered like, oh, that's not nice to say or to do. I wouldn't consider it like, because unethical is like you just don't even have integrity around it. And I wouldn't cast that across all
and I
Republicans.
wouldn't either. I wouldn't either.
But
But
anything.
the reason why, and I use that word purposefully, because when you think about ethics, I had to go look it up real quick. It's defined as not morally unethical, as not morally correct. When you think about what took place with Merrick Garland and his appointment, his justifiable appointment back in March, if not, it was in March of 2016, it wasn't allowed because of the Biden rule, due to timing. And literally before late Ruth Bader Ginsburg could even enter a refrigerator to preserve her body, the process of putting Amy Coney Barrett in office, or in her seat, was expedited. They were able to confirm her faster than they were able to approve any stimulus for coronavirus, a pandemic that has killed over 200,000 people. So I said unethical because, ethically speaking, if you have a moral fiber in your body, Pope John Paul once said, the essence of freedom isn't to do what you like, but to do what's right. And as we will see in a couple of days, when the Trump team takes all their legal action against these non-fraudulent, truthful elections, you'll understand more of why I said unethical, because it's even more unethical because a lot of people do not agree with this appointment, but because of power, they are willing to go against their moral compass. Because was it not Lindsey Graham himself who said, if there's another election, I'm going to let the people choose? And he did nothing of that sort. So I'm not trying to cast a cloud on all of the Republican Party, but the ones who hold the highest power and who are the spokesperson, the same way that Trump uses Pelosi and Schumer to judge all Democrats. And remember, only one Republican, who is a woman, by the way, is the only one who voted against the appointment. So that's why I use that strong term, because I think it's about time we start calling it what it is, and not mince words. Because again, people are still. Do you understand that we were approved one stimulus check of $1,200 back in April? That's supposed to last us how many months? There are so many
Mm.
people, including myself, who are unemployed or who don't have work, who don't have furtherance of work, who are being let go of jobs. It is now November 1st. That's open enrollment for health insurance, meaning that there will be more people on Medicare and or Medicaid. What are we going to do about them? And you know, our current president doesn't believe much in social programming. So if he wins, what happens to those swath of people? So this is where ethics plays a major role in how we are viewing people. It's not even about being Republican or Democrat, because it's country before politics. It has to be country. And when I say country, I mean the care of all American people, if not all people. Because it's funny how when it comes to rights to bear arms, with immediacy, there is no laws to prohibit, to extend the background checks, etc., etc. It's a big argument. But a pandemic where there is no found cure, a pandemic so strong that it riddled the most powerful man in the nation, almost comatose. But there is still a pause by Mitch McConnell in the Senate hearing the case because they don't believe that the amount of money is enough. Let's go through our budgetary expenses with the United States military and see how much money we've wasted in sense of protecting our country. And still, yet and still, and I'm going to show you why I use unethical one more time, yet and still, we're not any more advanced because Russia can still hack our elections. And Jack Ma, founder of Alibaba, said it best. While the United States was spending all of their money to look bigger, China and Russia spent money on IT. And now look at our elections. Every year, we see that Russia has been meddling in our elections in 2016. China has been meddling, and they still are. And they still are because they can, because money is not being properly allocated to the right places. And that has a lot to do with ethics. And it also goes back to what I said about broadband for all. All these things are together. Now, if my colleagues on the aisle of the Republican Party would like to turn a new page in American democracy, then let's do it. But right now, in a world where Trump as a person becomes the quintessential defining factor of a Republican Party, when the Republican Party, the Lincoln Party, and now we're looking at Trump. Oh, America, you have lost yourself. Republicans, you have lost yourselves. Just to win, you all are really ready to discredit the great qualities that you all have just to win. And to me, that is unethical.
So I think we're going to go ahead and close there. Chinedu, thank you so much for being here and sharing your perspective and your insight on what's happening with the election right now. We'll all be, I'm sure that those who are watching and following will continue to follow with the latest updates. So again, thank you all for joining. This is The World is Watching, Global Coalition for the International Black Lives Matter Movement. And I wish everyone a good and a safe
And if
day
I can just
today.
put one last word out there, every vote counts. Vote every election. And that's all. I thank you so much for having me, Alex, and I look forward to furthering the conversation at different times. And we'll look forward to the results this evening, hopefully.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Alrighty. Thank you, Chinedu, and everyone.
All right.
Have a
Thank
nice
you.
day today.